Hello.
Hey,
Good evening, Terence.
today Uposatha.
No, ours is
Oh,
tomorrow, yeah?
okay. The chanting is
Today is
is one day
our...
later, is it?
Hmm?
The full moon.
Yeah, different tradition has different lunar calendar.
Oh,
Apparently ours is tomorrow.
okay, Bante, you can start if you want. We are on live already.
Okay, all right. Can you see me?
A lot of your loyal followers.
Mhm. Okay, all right, yeah. Adjusting some settings. Okay, so a few are here. So, Sinwi, how's everything?
Good morning, Bante. Sorry, I was couldn't be here last week. It's too early for me to wake up.
Okay,
So
no problem. Where are you now?
I'm actually in California. So I
Oh, okay, all right. So it's in the
passed for
morning.
16 years. Yeah, so it's
I
like
see.
five something.
Wow. Okay, all right. Okay, that's cool.
Thank you, Bante. And I have to say that your class is probably some of the best class I've been to.
Oh,
At least
okay. Thank you very much.
to me, it's very useful. And
Okay.
I have a question. So I remember at the beginning, I believe it's the second class when we're talking about the sublime attitude, what it is really treating against, like the anger or the
Yes.
compassionate pain and or indifference. Do we have the Chinese version? Because I'm basically a Mandarin speaker here.
Yes,
And I
yes.
couldn't look
Somebody
for it
was
in
asking
Mandarin.
about it also.
Yeah, and I couldn't quite find it in Mandarin, and
I
I found
see.
it. Yeah, and I previously I was a Mahayana practitioner until actually met let me see, it's Bhikkhu Bante Hai.
Okay.
Yeah, he was actually my father's very long-term friend when he was in Guangdong, and I remember
Ah.
he taught me how to swim. So I went to visit him last year, and that's when he actually converted me from Mahayana to Theravada.
Okay.
Doesn't matter, it's different path, but I do find that in Mahayana we tend to easily fall into this compassionate pain, and I was like, oh my God.
Hmm.
And I'm being a healthcare provider, oftentimes either in the hospital and now in the clinic, we do we do tend to experience that. So I was like, oh wow, that is exactly what when the compassion it's using a little bit over.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's a little bit over the middle pathway. So I was like, oh, I want to find it in the Mandarin version. I
Um,
find it. So then
okay.
I was translating myself. I said, well, that probably become a compassionate pain, become 悲痛. I was like, okay, does it make sense?
Okay, all right. Yeah, and that's a very good point. Yeah, because my Chinese is also very poor. So somebody, Wei Li, right? Wei Li
Yeah, really.
from Malaysia is doing the translation. Yeah, I
Oh,
think he finished the translation already. Yeah, so
okay.
I think you can maybe get Terence contact.
Oh,
Yeah, he'll
yeah,
follow up
Okay.
with you.
Yeah,
that would
okay.
be
We'll post
wonderful.
it here. Yeah.
Yeah,
Awesome. Thank you
I'll
so
ask him.
much.
right, no problem. Okay, and how about Jen? Yeah, talking about the compassion and all the four sublime states. So
Okay, good
after, if
evening.
we finish this session, we'll talk on the Mettang Sutta, which you requested.
Yeah, okay. For me, actually, to me, I have a unique experience one day.
Mm-hmm.
Um, okay, it was on Friday morning.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Usually, right, we are actually trained to become a generator of meta, a
Mm-hmm.
transmitter of meta. You know, we are like actively, spreading out, right? But on that day, right, I find it hard to do that, generating meta,
Mm-hmm.
because maybe because life is hard.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I find it, there's so many things going on, and it's not pleasant, right? So I think the way how to actually to be in the state again and the meta state. So actually, then there's an inspiration that I become the receiver of meta. So there are flashes of faces of people who have been helping me, you know, throughout life. And then actually I realized that is meta that they are showing, you know. Then actually I received that meta with gratitude. With gratitude. That gratitude feeling, right, is so strong, you know. I become like overwhelmed. And then actually that energy is strong enough to bring to the higher level. Yeah. So then it becomes like a healing inside, because you know, sometimes you have wounds in the heart, you know, scars in the face, in the heart, because of certain thing happened to you, then you feel hurt, right? So that feeling, that love, that meta people have been showing around, actually realize that there are a lot of meta going on around me. So I should be grateful for that, you know. So that gratitude, right, become a healing, and then that's strong enough to get the higher level. But instead of transmitting meta, I become the receiver of meta. You know, so then I realized, I also remember that there are a lot of people, you know, in the human world, in the Deva world, in the Brahma world, they are actually generating meta most of the time. There are many meta practitioners, right? So actually try to tap into that energy. Sure enough, I feel there is inward of meta going in. Meaning like a receiver, you know, instead of transmitting. So that actually can bring it at a higher and higher level. This method, right, it is not according to what Sutta said, the Karanya meta. I'm a receiver of meta, you know.
I think you have transformed your object to gratitude.
Yes.
Yeah. So of course gratitude is also not part of the sort of post-canonical 40 objects of meditation, but of course there are 84,000 pathways. So whichever works for you and helps you, by all means. Yeah.
Oh, that is actually all right, Bhante.
Yeah, all right.
Is there any side effect? Is there any side effect?
Side effect, no, as long as your contemplation can reduce greed and hatred, can help you bring down the tension and stress and suffering, then that's good.
That's all right, Bhante.
Yeah.
Because when you do that, right, you actually, there's a lot of meta inside that actually you are also become the meta container, you know, in a way that you actually become nicer person, right? You know, even helping you with the relation with others, you know, even people smile, there is a meta they're showing me, and we feel very grateful for that. So this is my experience.
Okay, wow, that's a very interesting sharing. Thank you. How about Terence? You're the only one that's appearing on the screen. You're muted.
There's a few new guests one day.
Oh, okay.
Eddie, YC.
But they're not here, yeah? Eddie, is here.
They didn't on the video.
Yeah. Now
William Goh.
Talk to the scene beings first.
Maybe we can prepare at least 8:30.
Oh yeah, 8:30. Okay, all right. Then we can start.
Okay. Sadhu.
Okay.
Okay. Welcome to MSBS Dhamma Sharing Online. This event is jointly organized by Mahasatipatthana Buddhist Society Klang, Mudita Buddhist Society, and supported by Theravada Buddhist Council of Malaysia. Today is Tuesday, 1st September 2020, and the time now is 8:30. A few housekeeping rules before we start. Please display your name for easy identification. Make sure your audio is muted at all times. If you wish to ask a question, you may type your question at the chat box. To ask verbally, you may raise hand, unmute and talk. Please turn off your microphone after finish asking. One person to speak at one time. During guided meditation, please on your video so Bhante can see your progress. The meeting room will be locked during guided meditation. MSBS is fortunate to have with us Bhante Adhibalo, popularly known as Phra Goh. Bhante was born on July 14, 1985. Bhante had his big ordination into the Theravada tradition of Thai Dhammayut sect at Santi Forest Monastery in Johor, Malaysia in 2008. Spent the first 5 sprints retreat at various forest monasteries in Malaysia and Thailand. He is currently Vice President of Wat Palilais Temple, Singapore. Okay, now we shall invite Bhante to share the homage and the taking of the 5 precepts.
Okay, thank
To you,
you.
Bhante.
Thank you, Terence, for the intro. So now we do the salutation chant. So for the Buddhist participants, and start the homage. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. 3 refuges. Buddhang saranang gacchami. Dhammang saranang gacchami. Sanghang saranang gacchami. Tutiyampi Buddhang saranang gacchami. Tutiyampi Dhammang saranang gacchami. Tutiyampi Sanghang saranang gacchami. Tatiyampi Buddhang saranang gacchami. Tatiyampi Dhammang saranang gacchami. Tatiyampi Sanghang saranang gacchami. And the 5 precepts. Panatipata Viramani Sikkhapadang Samadhiyami. Adinadana Viramani Sikkhapadang Samadhiyami. Kamesu Michachara Viramani Sikkhapadang Samadhiyami. Musawada Viramani Sikkhapadang Samadhiyami. Suramiraya Majapamadatana Viramani Sikkhapadang Samadhiyami. Okay, sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Okay, so good evening to everyone once again, and today is the first lesson of the month, the 1st of September, and it's the 4th session on the breath meditation, right? 4th session on the breath meditation. The past 3 sessions we have been talking about this Anapanasati Sutta, right? So today we are going to talk on the extension of this Anapanasati Sutta, which is today this Dipa Sutta, right? So of course I present in a PowerPoint form. If you wish to read the full version, right? Full version, you can actually Google it. You can Google it. Yeah? So the full text I was told not to put the entire text inside the PowerPoint presentation. Looks too wordy, right? So I just present maybe some diagrams later on. So if you want to read the actual scripture, you can Google it, Dipa Sutta, right? So Dipa Sutta is actually in this Samyutta Nikaya 54.8, SN 54.8. So you can Google, right? Okay, and today happened to be Teachers' Day in Singapore. I'm not sure in Malaysia, but yeah, Singapore is Teachers' Day. So I'd like to take this time to wish all the teachers happy Teachers' Day, right? And this happened to be also, right, the Buddha's personal account on how he got enlightened as well. So no, the Buddha is for Buddhists, right? Is our teacher. So again, yeah, happy Teachers' Day to the Buddha as well. Okay, so we're going to start off with this Dipa Sutta. Come. Okay, so the beginning part of this sutta, the Dipa Sutta, also has the most part of the Anapanasati Sutta. It has all the preconditions, asks you to sort of sit in the secluded environment, and then has the 16 steps of Anapanasati, right, which I will briefly run through later. But what we're going to do is carry on. The difference is this Dipa Sutta doesn't mention the 7 factors of enlightenment yet, or yet it doesn't mention in this particular sutta. So the difference is the 7 factors of enlightenment in the Anapanasati Sutta is replaced by the jhanas in the Dipa Sutta. So I will later show you what we mean. Okay, so this is the Buddha's account. He mentioned the breath, in and out breathing concentration, right? When developed, will bring this great fruit and great benefit. So what happened was, right? He mentioned the audience, actually the monks, right before his awakening, when the Buddha, when I was an unawakened bodhisattva, frequently remained with this abiding. When I frequently remained with this abiding, neither my body was fatigued, nor were my eyes, and my mind, through lack of clinging sustenance, was released from fermentation. So it is this breath meditation can lead a person all the way to enlightenment. Okay, next. Okay, so what happens is there are a few prerequisites before a person sort of enter this concentration. So the first one is you can sort of make an aspiration or your intention. The first one in green, right? May my memories and results related to the household life be abandoned. Then he should attend carefully to this same concentration. Okay, next. Then the next one is remain percipient of loathsomeness. That means unpleasantness in the presence of what is not loathsome or what is sort of attractive. Then he should attend carefully to this concentration. And next. And you should have this thought of remaining percipient of unloathsomeness, which is pleasantness in the presence of what is unpleasant. Right? So basically, the one I highlighted in green is basically we have thoughts of greed, hatred, and delusion. Right? This is like the root of desire, the root of unwholesome desire. So the one in color is basically the counter thought to the 3 poisons: greed, hatred, delusion. So non-greed, non-hatred, non-delusion. So the first one in green is non-delusion. You know, sometimes you have delusion. You know, we want to live forever. We have plans, you know, in life. Want to achieve this, achieve that, right? So we should sort of abandon. So delusion sometimes can be closely related to this bhava tanha, right? Clinging for eternalism. We believe that we will be healthy forever. We will live forever. right? So we have lots of plans. So when we have this change or certain things, or maybe this pandemic happen, or certain plans change, then not happy already. So we have to have thoughts, right, to abandon this clinging to this eternalism, which is this delusion. Okay, and the next one, perception of loathsomeness, which is thoughts of non-greed. Thoughts of non-greed. So whatever is attractive, which is not loathsome, right? Then we have thoughts to reduce this lust or desire. And the last one, perception of unloathsomeness. So this is actually thoughts of, in what we do is thoughts of loving kindness, right? To make peace, a peace of all the unpleasant kind of sensations, right? So we have, if we fulfill all the 16 steps, all the 16 steps of breath meditation, we will actually fulfill all these 3 criteria, right? The mindfulness of feeling, right? The second quadrant, which is the number 5 to number 8 steps of the Anapanasati Sutta, and even this Dipa Sutta is to deal with the third criteria, perception of unloathsomeness, to feel pleasant feelings, and the perception of loathsomeness and this abandoning of this delusion is at the last quadrant, mindfulness of the Dhamma, impermanence. So if a person is mindful of impermanence all the time, they will detach, and this will sort of reduce the desire. All right, so this is the right thought aspect. Okay, next slide. Okay, so now we are going into the breath meditation. So I won't describe everything in the scripture word for word, but what happens is through the breath meditation, a person can actually enter from the first jhana, which is see at the bottom, first jhana, and the first level of concentration, all the way to the number 8, which is the neither perception nor non-perception. This is the highest level of the jhanic concentration, and also cessation, which is beyond, we call it transcending number 8. Right? So this is the, we call the full extent of the breath meditation. So of course now popularly the post-canonical Buddhist manuals will say, oh, breath meditation can only do until 4th jhana. They will tell you this, breath meditation can do until 4th jhana. But in this sutta, it is clearly mentioned, even the 5th level of concentration is down through the concentration of mindfulness of in and out breathing. Same with 6, 7, and 8. Right? So this is the original sutta. Right? So breath meditation can be done from 1 to 8. So of course there are people in the let's say some of people might think, okay, the jhanas is, how do you call it, not very essential. Not very essential. Or some people might think jhanas is a waste of time, not necessary to sort of develop. Or some people might say the Buddha did not do jhanas to reach enlightenment. Then they will attribute to his ascetic life before he was enlightened. He learned from the 2 teachers, right? This Alara Kalama, who taught him the 7 jhana, realm of nothingness, and this Udakarama Putta, the other teacher that taught him this neither perception nor non-perception, right? So, and they will think, oh, all these 2 ascetic teachers, they are able to do from 1 all the way to number 7, right? But that's not the case. If Alara Kalama could do 1 to 7, why don't he proceed to number 8? Right? Why don't you proceed to cessation, number 9? And same with this Udakarama Buddha. Why don't he proceed on to, after 8, why don't he proceed on to number 9? So there are certain concentrations or philosophies they have in mind. The theory of nothingness, for example, this Alara Kalama, right? He believed in nothingness, then Whatever they do is also recorded in the suttas. Whatever they do, they perceive nothingness. Whatever they see, they treat it as nothing, right? Whatever they hear, the sound, they also perceive as nothing. So after some time, they will enter this state, or this called the perception of nothingness. Right? So this is a kind of concentration which bypass the first to sixth level of concentration. So it's a direct entering of the seventh level of concentration. So this was how it was done by a certain method. So for example, some Buddhists, they might, for example, hold on to the concept of emptiness, right? Hold on to the concept of emptiness. So everything they perceive, everything's empty, empty, empty. So, right. So if they do not start off, for example, with maybe observation or investigation of impermanence to the extent of reduction of greed and hatred, and they impose together with that desire on everything they perceive. They will interestingly also enter into this state, realm of nothingness. Although the labels are different, although theoretically, we might believe that emptiness is much higher than nothingness. Then again, if without reducing greed and hatred, and then imposing this perception on everything, then they will enter into this realm of nothingness, right? If they do it for a long time. So similarly, the other teacher, this Udakaramaputa, taught this the Bodhisattva Gautama this neither perception nor non-perception, right? So that time was very competitive. So he wanted to go one step higher than this Alara Kalama, right? So realm of nothingness is also a perception. Nothingness is also a perception. So they discovered this realm of nothingness is a perception, because you need to impose your perception, right? So he want to go one step higher. Even that, they want to tackle this perception, right? So everything is perception. They want to see it as an illusion. So by imposing on this perception of everything they see, interestingly, they can sort of enter this neither perception nor non-perception, right? So of course, the Bodhisattva Gautama, he left the two teachers because he sort of attained that state. Even the two teachers confirmed, no, they have reached that level. And he find that, oh, there's something wrong with the philosophy. He hasn't got enlightened. So he decided to go to the other school of thought, because this school of thought, purely by focusing the mind, imposing a certain perception, is actually like something like freezing the karma, stealing the formations, right? So it doesn't sort of end suffering. So the other popular school of thought is basically torturing oneself, doing lots and lots of ascetic practices. So like doing lots of fasting, severe fasting, torturing yourself, standing on the sun, stand on one leg, hold the hand up, for long periods of time, sleeping on nail beds, so on and so forth. So the ascetic Gautama tried that practice for 6 years, tried to burn the karma, right? But was quite unsuccessful, right? He was about to pass away in the 6th year. Then he decided to change his strategy. He decided to go to this middle way. So when he started to feed himself, get back to a healthy condition, and then he remembered when he was a child, when he was a small boy, when he attended the plowing festival with his father, the king Suddhodana, right? He sort of he left. He skipped the plowing festival and sat under a tree to watch his breath. So he's able to recall how he entered the first level of concentration as a boy, right? So from there, he experimented how to let go of the first, and able to enter the second, from second enter the third enter the fourth, and so on and so forth. Right? So this was actually the Buddha's discovery, the first 4 levels of concentration, a step-by-step kind of methodology, right? Whereas the pre-Buddhist practices, or even some of the Buddhist practices that derive to today, some of the meditation objects, for example, let's say a recitation of mantras, maybe various other kinds of meditation can enter directly into the formless concentration, which is number 5 to number 8, and skipping the first 4. Right. So again, so this is the Buddha's account step by step how he entered from the first to number 8 and eventually cessation. So in cessation, one can actually experience the 7 factors of enlightenment. The 7 factors of enlightenment is actually the Buddha's discovery. The Buddha's discovery. That's how he got enlightened. Right. So we will cover this in the next sutta, which Jen requested. Right. So the 7 factors of enlightenment is actually the Buddha's discovery. So it is after the 8th jhana, then when a person reaches cessation, then they will enter this stronger version of the 7 factors of enlightenment. So can we move back to the 6th? Oh, sorry, next slide, please. Next slide. Okay, so now we are going to talk about these jhana factors. Just earlier on, we just talked about 1, 2, 3, 4. So for those who, let's say, attend Buddhist classes, most probably you get to see this kind of table. How many of you have seen this table before? Or something similar? Never? Okay, right. So if you attend some of the Buddhist classes, they will show you this table. It's actually a simpler version than reading the scripture, right? So it's actually trying to take down the key points. So if I'm going to orientate you on this table, they're going to describe the different factors, because sometimes in our meditation routine, I will just ask you to enter the first or second or third level. I will just tell you it's a pleasant emotion, but then to be specific, to be technical, what are these pleasant emotions that you are sort of experiencing? What are these pleasant emotions that you're experiencing? Okay, so if you look at the first column on the left, you see 4-fold and 5-fold, right? So we are going to ignore the row of 5-fold. So the 5-fold, the row has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, whereas the 4-fold has first, dash, second, third, and fourth, right? So we are going to ignore the 5-fold because the 5-fold is invention of the Abhidhamma in the Third Buddhist Council. So in the suttas, it's just first, second, third, and fourth, right? There's no additional second column there. Okay, so what are the factors of this concentration? Basically, they are the emotions that you are sort of experiencing, and it's going to be a bit technical. So the first one is vitaka, initial thought, vichara, sustained thought, piti means joy, sukha, happiness, ekagata, one-pointedness, and upekkha, which is equanimity. Okay, so these are the various factors one will experience in the various levels of concentration. So in the first level of concentration, if you move to the row on the right, so in the first, right? Okay, then we have all the factors except for equanimity. So if let's say a person from doing breath, let's say right now it's we have very bland emotion, right? We don't have anything strong, pleasant, and anything insightful or meaningful kind of emotion yet. Okay, so if a person is able to enter the first level of concentration, so if you are able to read the scripture, the one that you Google, the first criteria before they describe the factors is when a person is quite withdrawn from the senses. So a person is supposed to place their mind or their attention at a specific object and ignore, so ignore all the other sense stimuli, not to react to the sense stimuli. So by doing that for some time, and they're able to renounce that unified mind, right, then they're able to enter this first level of concentration where they're able to have all these vitaka, vichara, application and sustained thought, followed by joy, happiness, and this one-pointedness, which is the object of meditation that you are going to place. Okay, then we move on to the second jhana. So we are going to skip the dash part and we're going to the third column, which is the second jhana. Right, so by the fourfold standard, so you have initial and sustained thought, right? Initial application and sustained thought will disappear, right? Then a person will experience joy and happiness, and the same thing, one-pointedness, right? The object of meditation. So a person will also experience pleasant emotion, but there's a difference. Right? So it's hard to explain in theory. So in theory, I will just tell you something like this, but in practice, you have to experience and differentiate for yourself the different emotions, and then you can sort of reverse engineer yourself and find out what's the difference. What is this application and sustainment thought? What are they actually? So it is only when a person enters the first level of concentration and then when they move on to the second, that difference of emotion is the lacking of application and sustainment. So it is only when you enter that state then you can understand what's the difference. Okay, so similarly, if a person were to enter the third level of concentration, we move on to the right column, so the joy is being cancelled, right? So they only have happiness, one-pointedness, and actually there's one more, equanimity. So this table is not so accurate. So there's happiness, one-pointedness, and equanimity. So if a person enter the third, right, the change of emotion means there's a lacking of this joy. So basically, you can say the third level has happiness. So if a person wants to differentiate between happiness and joy, then you have to transit between the second and the third. Right? If not, joy and happiness, what's the difference? Right? What's the difference between joy and happiness? Right? In theory, you can maybe explain or relate to your past experiences. What maybe some birthday party or whatever. No, you want to think makes you happy or joyful. But no, these aren't secular happiness. These are actually supramundane forms of happiness. Right? Happiness not of the flesh. So when a person withdraws from senses and reduces desire, right, they will experience this kind of happiness and joy. It's different from secular kind of pleasure. Okay, and let's say if a person moves on to the fourth, then they will experience this happiness is cancelled, they will experience equanimity. So if a person let go of the third and they go to the fourth, then they experience this emotion called equanimity. Right? So this is just a short, brief, theoretical kind of explanation. Of course, if let's say a person never meditate, they won't have any idea what it is, what I'm talking about. Okay, so this is the rough description of all the four levels of concentration and the fifth concentration onwards, all the way to even cessation, there is equanimity. All right. Now I'm going to sort of end the session. Right now it's 9. In the theoretical session, we're going to end and we leave the floor open for Q&A. Any questions?
Bante, just now, Brother Dave raised his hand. Brother Dave,
okay.
would you like to unmute yourself? He's not responding.
Okay, Bante.
Oh, yes.
There's one question from TBCM.
All right.
What are the thoughts in Vitaka and Vichara, Ken Ross?
Okay, these are, okay, if a person were to go through the routine, these are actually more like background sort of thoughts, that sort of background noise, that sort of cloud this joy and happiness. Background thoughts, background noise, yeah, that sort of cloud joy and happiness. So if a person sort of ascend from first to second, they can feel the change of intensity of this pleasurable emotion. So likewise, if a person were to descend from second to first, then they're able to, by process of elimination, able to differentiate this vitaka and vichara. Okay. So there's a misconception that only the first jhana that's thinking, right? There's initial and sustained thought based on just reading it theoretically. And people will think, oh yeah, second jhana means no thinking really, and third and fourth, no thinking at all, which is not true, right? So if you are able to take more sample size of the various suttas, for example, Jhana Sutta, or the Panya Vimutti Sutta that talks about the various levels of concentration. So it is said that every level of concentration, even from the second all the way to the formless levels of concentration, there is thinking involved, there's reflection involved. Every level of concentration have to reflect on impermanence, not suffering, non-self. There's a whole list of these contemplations. So there is thinking involved. So this vitaka and vichara is not the normal kind of thinking. It's actually the passive, background noise, background thinking that is sort of reduced. All right. Okay. Are there any other questions? Oh, today no question because I'm too deep.
Dante.
Yeah.
Dante, can
Yes.
you hear?
Yeah, I can hear.
I got a question. I referring to your diagram, the 4 jhana plus the 8 jhana.
Yeah.
You show there's a diagram from first to 8 jhana, then plus cessation.
Yeah.
So I presume the cessation is
After the 8.
liberation.
Yeah, the cessation is.
Does it mean that we have to do?
If you can do, then
yeah,
yes. If you can do, then yes, please, by all means do so, because in our Zoom session, we don't have time to go through all 8. Sometimes
Right.
I'm struggling to do 3rd or 4th, then time's up. Right? And I'm also doing in a rush. Normally, if you want to practice on yourself, it will be better you have a longer time. So each level you can take your time to enjoy and sort of familiarize, and then you can go up and down. Right. So of course, if you can go all the way to the 8 and beyond cessation, right? This cessation again is experiencing these 7 factors of enlightenment. Right? If a person were to sort of transcend the number 8, they will experience the 7 factors, and in these 7 factors does not necessarily mean once a person reached the cessation after the 8 jhana means enlightenment. No. It means a person cease reacting, right? That means just like our 16 steps of breath meditation, there is also a step of cessation. When a person contemplates impermanence, then there is one of the steps is cessation, right? Relinquishment and cessation. So there is actually, according to the Four Noble Truths, this cessation is actually the stopping of this desire from reacting, right? So it's still not yet fully enlightened. That means there's still a long way to go. It's basically still a process of understanding the tug of war. So again, I'm going to use analogy, the Buddha's life story again. Before Buddha got enlightened, when he stopped this ascetic practice, he made a vow, aspiration. He was after his meal, he had his alms bowl, which is empty alms bowl. he walked to a river. He walked to a river, right? Then he placed this bowl on top of the river. So he made a wish, right? If he is able to reach enlightenment, may this bowl move upstream, which is impossible, right? Because the current and everything is sweeping downstream. The river is flowing downstream, right? So this is a symbolic story because the bowl went upstream. So what it's trying to imply is that our desire is going one direction, whereas the practice is going to the other direction. We are actually moving to the other direction, reducing greed and hatred. We are traveling the opposite direction. So it's not easy. So it requires the whole Eightfold Path, a lot of effort to move the bowl upstream. A lot of people will think meditation, quiet, quiet, no thinking. No thinking, you actually flow downstream. Actually, the mind flow downstream, mind very peaceful, very quiet, but actually it's flowing downstream, right? You won't know. So the Buddha's discovery, his technique requires a lot of thinking, a lot of right thoughts and right effort to move upstream. Right, so yeah, then again, in the previous session, like I mentioned, the 7 factors is still a long way to go when a person needs to have at least 7 days, according to the Satipatthana Sutta, to understand the 7 factors of enlightenment. Because whenever a person reacts with greed or hatred, the 7 factors are gone, back to square one. And when a person reduces desire, then they experience no part of the 7 factors or all of the 7 factors again. All right, so does that answer your question? And this is
what I want to know is, I want to know is that from the diet, it seems like sensation come out. So the question is, can you attain sensation at 1 or
you're breaking up
3 or 4?
Can you like type your question?
Get out of the samsara.
Didi Casey cannot hear you.
Jhana 1, 2, 3, or 4.
We can't hear you. You're breaking up. Maybe you can type your question. Yeah. Maybe it's the connectivity.
Yeah. The line is a bit poor. Okay, I'll
the
type.
line is going through cessation.
I think Brother Jen has raised his hand.
Okay, all right.
Okay, good evening, Bante.
All right.
Is it all right? I would like to go ask about more detail into when a person go from 4th to 5th, right? Let's say somebody is using, let's say, take my case, I usually use metta, right? So let's say metta as the object of the bhavana, right? And then on 4th, you're actually feeling equanimity, right? Upeka. And then let's say the same method that normally you use, that go to the next one, like you say, tell the mind to go to the next level.
Yeah.
The energy is going up, so there is a change of emotion to the 5th, right? So the object is still metta. The differentiation between the two will be, I don't know whether it is according to what your understanding is, because on the 4th we felt equanimity, and the 5th, because now on the 5th it is actually the infinite of space, right? So the object of meditation is still metta. The energy going up is metta because of metta energy. And then when we close our eyes, okay, suddenly you can see, not say suddenly, there is a stabilization period, and then you can see actually the space by itself. It just appear by itself without looking for the object of space, right? It just appears just like that. Is it correct, man?
It's a form of perception. Everyone has a different experience, but the whole idea is, for my routine, I'm not so emphasizing on this visualization. So it's more of kind of feel. A person will feel very spacious.
You mean you don't see Okay, because to me, if it is an infinite of space, there must be a path of space that actually, when I close my eyes, there is a feeling of space, all around us, right? This must be there, because the other one is the how to actually determine that you're actually on the field. Is it correct, Bhante?
Yeah. So this is again is a kind of perception, right? Of course, if you can have the equanimity and a kind of this perception of space, or a different level of equanimity, much higher than the fourth, then you're on the right track, right? But if again, if you just visual imprint of space, I think anybody can just Google the image of space, and it might be just a thought. Yeah.
It's not a visualization, and I'm looking for that visualization.
Okay.
It's not purposely looking for that visualization. It just appears by itself in the mind, right? Okay.
Yeah, that could be a personal experience.
Okay, which is different.
The main factor is more on the emotion of spaciousness and equanimity.
So you are saying the emotion of spaciousness, meaning the feeling is spacious?
It's a kind of perception.
Perception,
yeah.
Okay. All right then, Bhante.
Okay, all right. Okay, any other questions?
Review from Sinvi. There's a person who suffers spinal cord injury, likes to know whether he or she can practice meditation.
Okay, if you have certain back injury, then we can do meditation in other postures. You can lean on a good backrest and meditate, or you can even lie down, sleeping posture, to meditate. Or if you can walk, right, then you can stand or do walking meditation. No worries. Yeah. Hope I answered the question. Okay, there's a private question to me. Okay, from Dean. Hi, Bhante, does the process of concentration practice usually follow the sequence of the jhanas from first, second, and onwards, or can it skip steps? So far, only the what I come across, only the breath meditation has this sequence on the first, second, third, fourth onwards. Right. Most of the other meditation objects that I at least read from the suttas, they sort of bypass. And they bypass the first, second, and stuff like that. Right, so hopefully that answers your question. Okay, any other questions on the ground?
Okay, there's one from Sally.
Okay.
I did not experience any jhana during my meditation. If obtained jhana is obtained jhana very important?
Okay, it's more like how do you call it? Charging the battery of the mind, right? So if you a person doesn't have let's say jhanas or equanimity from the jhanas, then it's like operating your device on low battery, right? So of course, it's not say it's impossible to reach enlightenment, right? You probably have to. It's not so efficient, compared with having these jhanas, right? So that's my take on it. Of course, there are many other examples. For example, the Asubha Sutta, the impurities of the body, foulness meditation. The Buddha did a comparison between a person doing Asubha meditation and doing jhana meditation. So a person doing Asubha meditation without the jhanas can reach enlightenment. Right. So again, the post-canonical version will tell you, Asubha can reach first jhana, for example, whereas the suttas doesn't say so, right? And if a person does the jhanas, then it will be a pleasant journey. So these are the difference. Yeah. Any other questions? Okay, if not, then we can have a short break. Now it's 9:15, so 9:20 we come back. We can do some stretching, go for a toilet break, then we come back, and hopefully it's a pleasant sitting session. All right, okay, see you in 5 minutes time. Okay, now it's 9:20. Hopefully everyone is back.
Become unseen beings.
Yeah, lots of unseen beings. Now in the 7th month festival, yeah. So probably today is the last session. We are attempting to do this level by level jhana. Right. But for those who miss it, you can replay the past videos. The instructions are there. And next session onwards, we are attempting this Mettang Sutta. It's a different sutta altogether, so different meditation instructions. Okay, so now it's 9:21. So whoever is here, please you can find a comfortable sitting position. We're starting. Okay, so what we are going to do, keep our backs upright, right? If you have a back injury, by all means, you can lean on something. Find a comfortable posture that which doesn't require you to exert too much of your muscles to keep your body upright, right? Find the best center of gravity. Maybe you can tilt in a certain way, your lower spine can tilt a bit forward so that the center of gravity can keep your back upright effortlessly. And you can relax all your muscles. Okay, then we're going to start off with the meditation. Once you've closed the eyes, and we're going to do this, our first phase, body relaxation. It's a bit of MRI kind of imaging kind of exercise. So we're going to scan our body from head all the way down. If you can visualize your body, by all means. If you can't, it's okay. The main thing is we are emphasizing on the sensations of the body. So from head to toe, we are going to feel the sensations that arise. Right? Whatever sensation that arise, we wish them well and happy. There's no need to purposely generate the sensations, let it come naturally. Whatever sensation that pop up, we just treat them as passerby. No need to cling on to them, which is greed, and no need to reject them, which is hatred. So we scan from head to toe, right? The face, the eyes, any tension, whatever sensation you feel, can be itch, aching, pain, whatever it is. We just wish it well and happy. and then the neck region and shoulders. Followed by your arms, left and right arm, all the way down to your fingers. And then the torso of the body, chest and abdomen region, right? Whatever sensation that appear, we wish them well and happy. And the back of your body, your spinal cord, shoulder blades, all the way down to the tailbone. We wish all the sensations well and happy. And then your hip region, contact of the floor of your seat. And your thighs and legs, all the way down to your toes. You wish all the sensations well and happy. Okay, make sure you are at peace in the body so that it won't sort of hinder you in the meditation. In the next phase, we are sort of trying to restrict or isolate this attention to one point below the nostril, above the upper lip, one small area where in and out breath touches the skin. Right, so that's the point where we observe the in and out breath. There's no need to feel your windpipe, your lungs, your diaphragm. Right, so there's two options, right? You can either choose to place your point right below the nostril, above the upper lip, or if you wish, some traditions they put it at the diaphragm, and you just stick at that particular spot. So that will be your one-pointedness. Okay, so we are not forcing or coercing the mind there. So we have a way to be at peace in the mind. So whenever there's inhalation, we wish the breath well. Exhalation, we wish the breath happy. And this is the first and foremost important step. You don't want to coerce the mind to be still. That is actually a form of violence. So by using thoughts of non-hatred, also loving kindness, and we reduce the desire of aversion, and this will help the mind to calm down to a certain extent. Okay, and if your mind is at peace, you find the mind calm through loving kindness, then we can introduce the other thought of non-greed to the mind. And so we're going to observe the birth and death of the breath, or rising and falling, or impermanence, whatever label you call it. So when we breathe in and out, right, this breath has many microcycles of birth and death going on. And if you can feel the various sensations of the breath, we categorize them into the 4 elements, or the 4 categories. The first element being earth represents hard and soft sensations. So if you breathe in and out, there are any changes in density of the air, then there's birth and death of the earth element. And if there's a birth, you breathe in and out, there's a change in temperature, hot and cold, and there's a birth and death of the fire element. And when you breathe in and out, any changes in speed, the breathing rate, and there's a birth and death of the wind element. And if you breathe in and out, any changes in the moisture, then there's a birth and death of the water element. So there's no need to deliberately generate any sensation. Whichever sensation that arises or pop up, then you just observe the birth and death process of that particular sensation. It can be other sensation beyond the 4 elements, whatever it is, you just take note of its birth and death. I'm going to give an analogy of driving a car. Right? So if you drive a car, we need to step on this acceleration pedal. Right? So same thing, this contemplation of impermanence of the breath is akin to stepping this acceleration pedal. So if you want to keep moving, please do not stop the contemplation. Continue with this impermanence of the breath until the mind is able to settle down. There will be a point where the mind will settle until it cannot settle any further. So that is a point where it is very stable. I call this the stability point. So that is actually the true one-pointedness of the mind. So to generate this one-pointedness, we need to observe the impermanence, the birth and death of the breath. It is like creating this kinetic energy, and we convert into this one-pointedness. And if your mind has reached this stability point, then you can enjoy this experience. Basically, is to remember this emotion and not forgetting the impermanence of the breath. Okay, once you have tasted the one-pointedness or this stability point, make sure you fulfill two criteria. You have two prerequisites. Criteria number one is that you have remembered this emotion, and criteria number two, the mind has to be calm. And if you have fulfilled these two criteria, then you have two options. Option number one, you can choose to remain in this one-pointedness. Or option number two, you can increase the gear, right? Just like when driving a car, there's a limit to each gear, speed limit. So there's a different pace limit. Right? So if you wish to proceed further or faster, then you can increase the gear. So how to do so? You make a wish to let go of this mind. Let go of this state of mind. It's just like a child letting go of a balloon. So once you release the mind, you just need to sort of take a step back and relax and observe the transition of the mind without any form of exertion, while the mind will evolve naturally by itself to the next level. And if your mind has successfully reached the first level, and if you've done it correctly, then there will be this pleasant emotion that will manifest and sort of overtake this bland emotion earlier on. Right? So you have this new pleasant emotion, which I've gone through the technical details on this joy, happiness, whatever it is. You just take note of this pleasant emotion and not forgetting the mindfulness of impermanence of the breath, which is the stepping of the acceleration pedal until the mind reaches a new rate of calmness. And if your mind has reached the new rate of calmness, the new peace limit, or the rate of settling is so negligible, then you can enjoy this first level of concentration. Basically, it's to remember this emotion and also not forgetting the impermanence of the breath. And once you have tasted the first level of concentration, make sure you have fulfilled two criteria. Criteria number one, you have remembered this emotion. And criteria number two, that the mind has to be calm. And if you have these two criteria, then you have two options. Option number one, you can choose to remain in this first level. Or option number two, you can choose to increase the gear. Right, make sure you need to fulfill the two criteria. Then you can let go of this mind. So if you choose to increase, right, you just release the mind, just like a child letting go of a balloon. And the mind will evolve naturally by itself without you interfering. Just observe the transition of the mind. Okay, and if your mind has reached the second level, the indicator will be a new kind of pleasant emotion will manifest. Right, so actually still joy and happiness without the sustained and applied thought. Then you can continue mindful of the emotion and also continue mindful of the impermanence of the breath, like stepping on the acceleration pedal until the mind reaches a new rate of calmness. Okay, and for those who have reached the new rate of calmness, the rate of settling is like very negligible, and then you can enjoy the second level of concentration. Basically, it's to remember the emotion and also not forgetting the impermanence of the breath. Okay, and if you have tasted the second level of concentration, and make sure you fulfill two criteria. Criteria number one, that you have remembered the emotion, and criteria number two, that your mind has to be calm. And then you have two options once you fulfill the two criteria. Option number one, you can choose to remain in this second level, or option number two, you can choose to increase your gear. So if you choose to increase, then what you need to do is release this mind, let go, make a wish, right? To let go of this second level, just like a child letting go of a balloon. And we can take a step back and observe the transition of the mind while the mind evolves naturally by itself to the next level. And once the mind has reached the third level, right, the indicator will be as this new pleasant emotion. Technically, it's just happiness and no more joy. And you can be mindful of this emotion and also continue mindfulness of impermanence of the breath, just like stepping on this acceleration pedal until you reach a new rate of calmness. And if your mind has reached the new rate of calmness, and basically the rate of settling is so negligible, and there's a limit to this peace, then you can enjoy the third level of concentration. Basically, it's to remember this emotion and also not forgetting the impermanence of the breath. And if you have tasted the third level of concentration, and make sure you fulfill 2 criteria. Criteria number 1, that you have remembered the emotion, and criteria number 2, that your mind has to be calm. And if you have these 2, then you have 2 options. Option number 1, you can choose to remain at the 3rd level, or option number 2, you can choose to increase your gear. And if you choose to increase, then you can make a wish to let go of this mind, just like a child letting go of a balloon. So we just take a step back and observe the transition once you release the mind, and the mind will actually evolve naturally by itself without any interference. And if you have successfully reached the 4th level, then you should experience this new emotion called equanimity. It's totally different from the previous levels. There's no more joy, no more happiness. Then you can take note of this emotion and also mindful of impermanence of the breath until you reach a new rate of calmness. And if the mind has reached the peace limit, the new rate of calmness, then you can enjoy the experience of the 4th level. Basically, it's to remember this emotion and also mindful of the impermanence of the breath. Okay, once you have experienced the 4th level, and make sure you fulfill 2 criteria. And criteria number 1, you have remembered the emotion, and criteria number 2, then your mind is calm. And due to the time constraint, we won't proceed further higher. You can do it in your own free time. It's the same steps actually. And we are going to reverse order now, right? So we are going to lower the gear down to the third level. So make a wish to go down. As you observe the transition of the mind, continue the mindfulness of the breath, impermanence of the breath. So for those whose minds are at the third level, make sure you fulfill the two criteria. Number one, you remember the emotion, and number two, that your mind has to be calm. And the calmness is important, shows that there's no clinging, right? Because if you get up from meditation with clinging to this state of mind or the emotion, then there might be headache and it's energy stuck. Okay, and if your mind is calm, then you can lower the gear down to the second level and observe the transition of the mind and continue the impermanence of the breath. Once your mind is at the second level, make sure you fulfill two criteria. Criteria number one, you remember this emotion. And criteria number two, the mind has to be calm. So once you fulfill the two criteria, then you can lower the gear down to the first level. As you observe the transition of the mind, also mindful of the impermanence of the breath. And for those who has reached the first level, make sure you fulfill two criteria. Criteria number one, that you have remembered this emotion, and number two, that you have reached this calmness of mind. And if you have these two criteria, then you can lower the gear, right? Lower back down to ground zero on this base point or stability point. And as you observe the transition of the mind, continue the mindfulness of impermanence of the breath. Okay, and for those who are at ground zero, make sure your emotions are bland, no more pleasant emotion. And the mind has to be calm. And we can sort of bring the mind back to the body. Start to recondition the mind to feel the rest of the fingers and toes. Sort of scatter the mind. No need to focus on the breath anymore. As we start to conclude this breath meditation exercise, right, then we can slowly open your eyes once you're done. Okay, and if you're ready, then we can have a final, it's 10:05, yeah, any final questions or issues, any problems from the ground? No, everyone peaceful, too peaceful to think. Okay, then if there are no questions, then we can conclude with the dedication chant.
Bante,
Yes.
I just curious, why is this sutta called Dipa the lamp? Dipa Sutta the lamp. Why is it called the lamp?
Probably the lamp is like an analogy for wisdom, overcome ignorance. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
And actually, towards the end of the sutta, towards the end of Dipa Sutta, there is a mention of the lamp, right? After a person sort of attains sort of this cessation from the 8th level, they have to still contemplate on the impermanence of the body and whatever not, and until the point of death. So they give an example like a candle, right? If a person passes away, it's like a flame that's being extinguished, something like that. So there's an example towards the end. Okay, all right. Okay, no other questions, then we can do this Anumodana, the sharing of merits. Akasata ja bhumata devanaga mahitika punyam tahanumoditva chirang rakantu loka sasanam etavata cha amhihi sampadang punya sampadang sabbe deva sabbe buddha sabbe sata anumodantu Samba Sampati Siddhya. Transference of merits to the departed. Idam Minyatina Hotu Sukhita Hontu Nyatayo. Idam Minyatina Hotu Sukhita Hontu Nyatayo. Idam Minyatina Hotu Sukhita Hontu Nyatayo. Patana, aspiration. Imina punya kamena mame bala samagamo satang samagamo hotu yavani bana patiya. Okay, sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. All right.
Thank you, Bante. Thank you, Bante.
Thank you,
Okay,
Bante.
That concludes today's session. So we'll see you all again next week, same time, Tuesday, 8:15.
Okay, good night.
Thank you very much, Bante.
Bante.
No problem. Thank you. Good night.